to welcome our radio listening audience and those of you who are listening over the radio hookup to the weekly radio ministry of Minister Louis Farrakhan, the national representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Minister Farrakhan is the principal speaker of the series of weekly lectures that are coming to you live from the Final Call Administration Building located at 734 West 79th Street. That's 1 block east of Halstead. You are listening to radio station WBEE 1570 on your AM dial. If you would like to contribute to the weekly radio ministry of Minister Louis Farrakhan, all you have to do is send your checks and money orders to the Final Call Radio Ministry, 734 West 79th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60620. Once again, that's to the Final Call Radio Ministry, 734 West 79th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60620. If you would like to get a tape of today's lecture or any lecture by Minister Farrakhan, you can get that tape easily. All you have to do is dial 994-5775. That's 994-5775. The area code is 312. Now, brothers and sisters in our radio listening audience across Chicago, we want you to take this time to go call a loved one, a friend, or relative. Tell them that that dynamic program, the Final Call Administration, or should I say the Final Call program, is coming to you live from that building that now is beginning to be known as just the Final Call at 79th and Emerald. We want you now, though you may be listening to the pregame show dealing with the Super Bowl to be held today, we want you not to turn away from this radio station. You're going to hear a super message given to a super people by a superman. And we want you not to hurt yourself in trying to look at the pregame show and listen to the super message at the same time. We want you to forego listening to the pregame show and just get ready to hear a super message. For as the Bears would say, we're not here to start no trouble. We're just tired of doing the Negro shuffle. We want you to know that this is a program that we understand is controversial. But after we look at the meaning of controversy, we're not ashamed to be controversial. For we know that controversy is that is against the popular opinion of what is true. So if we are against that, then indeed it's an honor to be controversial. For we realize that by studying the scriptures, Jesus was controversial. So we are in good company when we think about how controversial that man was. So brothers and sisters in our radio listening audience, we want you to stay tuned for what you're going to hear today. I don't believe that if the Super Bowl were at the same time that this message was going on, that maybe the Super Bowl may not stand a chance. Listen carefully. I would like to bring up, without further ado, the man who's going to deliver the super message to a super people. In Chicago, you can be a super city. All you have to do is listen carefully, clear your mind, and I guarantee you, you won't have to worry about the refrigerator. You're going to have a mind that is stocked, not like an icebox, but be full of the wisdom of God. I bring to you Minister Louis Farrakhan Muhammad.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Beloved brothers and sisters, once again it is my privilege and my pleasure to have this opportunity to share with you some of that which we have learned as a result of being students of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Today, on this Super Sunday, I would like to be as brief as possible. So I better get right to the message. The Holy Quran, which is the book of scripture of the Muslims, teaches us that once upon a time man was nothing that we should speak of. This teaches us the humble origin of all life. We all emerge from a tiny or cloudy drop of water that is called sperm. That is a very humble origin. And that is not conversation for civilized people or intelligent people to talk of sperm. Likewise, when God brings a people to greatness, he brings them from humble origins. This is written in the Quran to say to a people of God's choice today, and to say to a powerful people who rule the world today, that once upon a time you were nothing to speak of. The people that are nothing to speak of today are the black people of America and the world. And the people that Allah is reminding that once upon a time they were nothing to speak of is the Caucasian people who are the present world rulers. If the Caucasian people once upon a time were nothing to speak of, how then did they become such masters in the land? How did the Caucasians come from nothing to master the sea, to now go out into space and to make a contraption that has been out in space since the latter 70s, visiting the planets and taking a peep into the heavens? As the Holy Quran again teaches, that those whom Allah would destroy, he first gives them a peep into the heavens. He makes them to see how awesome he is, how magnificent he is, how awe-inspiring is his creation. And he makes you to see by looking at what is above your head and beneath your feet that you make yourself a fool to oppose the originator of the heavens and the earth. But he does this to a man that he's about to destroy. Say, now that you have exalted yourself to be a God and a Lord beside me, and you even have some of my own foolish servants worshiping you as they ought to worship me, I'm going to show you how insignificant you are. I'm going to remind you what I brought you from, and then I'm going to let you get a peep into the heavens to see just the power that you are trying to fight against. Perhaps maybe you fall down and prostrate and beg forgiveness, but I think it's a little late. I think it's a little late. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has opened up the history of the Caucasian people for us as he was taught by Master Farad Muhammad, whom I represent to the world as the best knower among us. For we did not know these things until one taught us. And so if a man who has completed the 4th grade of school teaches us that which we did not know before, then one mighty in power has taught such one. The Caucasian people do not argue with this teaching. In fact, they will be quiet around their radios today on Super Sunday, and they will reflect with us at how far, not that they came, because that suggests you're moving on your own power. But when somebody brings you from a mighty long way, then you must always remember who it was who brought you wherever you are. Now, the Caucasian people, who now are such masters and lords in the earth, had a very humble beginning due to a chastisement. They made trouble among the holy people after they were made. They turned what is called the Garden of Paradise, or the Garden of Eden, which the scholars put between the Tigris and Euphrates River in the Middle East. They turned that area upside down by the telling of lies and creating of mischief. So they were driven out of the Holy Land into the hills and cave sides of Europe, as we are taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Since Europe was hilly and filled with caves, the original people who knew the whole planet, had visited every part of our planet, had chosen the best part for himself. And therefore the original people, or the black people, chose that rich Nile Delta and that part of northeast Africa, which you call the Holy Land. That really is a part of Africa. And we were the original inhabitants there. I say this very respectfully to the present Palestinians and others. Your fathers there, the original people in those areas, were all black. The original Arabs that inhabited the Arabian Peninsula are black. The original inhabitants of that area that is called Palestine, Jericho, and all those areas, black people. And they are still there today in abundance. But, of course, that area being so important in world affairs, one could not rule the world without having some sway over that area. So conquering Egypt, conquering the Nile, conquering Northeast Africa has been the aim of every conqueror that has come up. And every conqueror from Europe that has come up, that has come down into what is called the Middle East, their desire was to conquer the heartland of the earth, to conquer that part of the earth from which spiritual guidance has come to all of the peoples. The Caucasian people, for making trouble in that area, were driven out. In your Masonic rituals, the cable tow is a part of a ritual that reminds the present-day Caucasians of what their fathers suffered crossing the burning sands of the Arabian desert as they were being driven westward out of the civilized lands of the holy people into the hills and cave sides of Europe. In the Bible, it teaches us that when Adam broke the peace of the garden, he was put out of the garden, and a flaming cherubim was put at the east gate to keep him from coming back in. Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that this has reference to the Caucasian people, a new people, and they are under the symbol of Adam, though we know that that also has a reference to us. They are under the number 6, but that also has a reference to us, for we also are under the number 6. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, and the Bible bears witness when it says, count the number of the beast, for the number of the beast is the number of a man. Well, the beast is a man too, but he's under the little 6, and the original man is under the big 6. He has to be under whatever number we are under in the way of creation, because he comes from us. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Now he's cable-toed, driven out from among us as a new people, a troublemaking people, a rebellious people. Adam then was put out of the garden. It's referring to the Caucasian race. Some of them were hidden. Listen carefully. Some of them were hidden. And as the lessons of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teach us, we rounded up all that we could find, meaning that there were some that we could not find that were there. I'm talking about Caucasian people in the Middle East who grew up there under our way of life. And then the scripture says, and the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and took them to be wives. The sons of God here are referring to the original inhabitants of that part of the earth, seeing the daughters of men. Now you have sons of God, sons of men. Now you have the delineation of beast and man. But we're really talking about two kinds or species of human beings. We're talking about the original man, who is referred to as God, because the original man is the first creation of the God, and the very nature and essence of the God is in the nature and essence of his first creation, which is the black people of the earth. This is why you are called by Allah the righteous, even though you are not practicing righteousness. You are born of the righteous. You are born of God. The nature of God is your nature. But the Caucasian is a grafted human being from you. And in coming out of the original people, he's like you, but not the same essence as you. As the carbon copy is not as valuable as the original, neither can the made man be equal to or as valuable in the sight of Allah as the original. Now this may sound to you like some racist doctrine, but no, this is absolute truth. Now, of course, you can mark yourself or drop yourself down in the eyes of God by not living according to your nature. And the Caucasian can come up in the eyes of God if he rejects the nature in which he's created and obeys God.
Come on, brother. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Now, let us talk for a moment on the sons of God and the daughters of men, and count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. Now, the sons of God, black people, saw the daughters of men. There is an attraction here, because the daughters of men were fair or light-skinned or white-skinned, and we were black, and this set up the law of attraction. Unalike began to attract. So as the black man took these white women for mates, race mixing began in the Holy Land. And of course, when conquerors came down, they also mixed their blood, and the blacks were gradually pushed out of areas of power, pushed out from the Mediterranean, pushed out from the lower Nile, which is at the mouth of the Nile, pushed further and further into the interior of Africa, while the blacks controlled all of those waterways, because you cannot be a great commercial man, a great trader, without having control or having waterways. So they pushed us away, and we lost that ability to have the commercial centers. They took that over. And so if you look in the Middle East today, you will find, even in Iraq, in Syria, you will find very dark Syrians, very dark Iraqis. But when you see the Syrians in America, the Lebanese in America, the Iraqis in America, they are all white. Yes. Well, this is because the immigration system here does not want dark Iraqis in, dark Syrians in, because then you might get the thought that you got some people over there. Come on, brother. They don't want you to understand. They don't want you to understand that you are an international and universal people. Okay, so the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair. Now this is going on in the Holy Land among people that were left behind, and others were driven into the caves and hillsides of Europe. Now when they got into the hills and cave sides of Europe, many of them, some of them, tried, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has taught us, to graft themselves back into their original selves, and they did a bad job of it, and they got as far as the ape, yes. And from that, oh yes, yes. Oh yes. Yes. The ape is not an old fella. He's no older than 6,000 years on our planet, but he is related to the Caucasian people. On, and that, no, I'm not trying to be smart. That's why when they say, well, I'll be a monkey's uncle, they know what they're talking about.
Go ahead, brother.
They love the monkeys. They love the chimpanzee. They love all that family there.
They do. Go ahead, brother.
And that's understandable. I am not making any mockery. But Allah says in the Quran that those who rebel, He turned them into apes and swine. See, the swine here is not the physical pig, but as it is a lover of filth. When a human being who is supposed to move toward divine, move toward God, move toward reflecting His righteousness, rebels against good guidance, God turns him into an animal. And he begins to look like an animal, act like an animal, smell like an animal. Yes. And the lowest of animals is the ape and a swine. Yes, sir. You understand? Very good. So don't let anybody call you a pig. And that's another reason why you should stop eating it. If somebody called you pig, you'd smack them in their face, because it's an ugly animal and a nasty animal. And if you are what you eat, then maybe you should cut out eating the flesh of such a detestable, abominable animal in the sight of God. Now let's move on. You say, well, God made it. God made a lot of things, but not for you to eat.
Go ahead, Brother Mercy. Go ahead.
Happy Super Sunday to you. Let's move on. So now you have a Caucasian growing among the holy people, growing up without the teaching of their father, Yaqub, growing up without a teaching of lies and tricks. Because what makes the Caucasian devil is not so much the grafting of him physically, but it is the teaching of his father, Yaqub, that makes him of a mind where he wants to dominate and rule the black, the brown, the red, the yellow, and his heart and his mind is a mind of lying and murder according to the way he was taught.
Come on, brother.
So the only way he could be saved is to destroy his mind. Hear me now. Those Caucasians that were growing up in the Middle East, they were not growing up according to the teaching of Yaqub. They were growing up according to the righteous principles of those holy people of that area. So you have many white people who live in that area where they would be offended if you called them devil, because they have tried all their lives to live according to the way of the prophets. But the moment they get out of that environment and come over here, then you see a complete change come over them, and they become just like their brethren over here, showing you that they have a natural leaning to that filthy way. And the minute you get them out from under the law of Prophet Muhammad, you will see a devil sure enough coming after you. Listen to me. So now you have one growing up on the right and another one growing up with no guidance at all. So the Caucasian in the hills and cave sides of Europe was something to see. Look at what the Holy Quran says in the 18th surah, which is called the cave. It's talking about them and somebody else that I'll introduce you to in a minute. In the 18th verse it reads, "And thou mightest think them awake while they were asleep. And we turned them about to the right and to the left, with their dog outstretching its paws at the entrance. If thou didst look at them, thou wouldst turn back from them in flight, and thou wouldst be filled with awe because of them." Now, Caucasians know this of their history. If you look at the Caucasians that lived in the hills and cave sides of Europe, if you could see them in the state that they were in, you would turn back in flight and run, and you would be filled with awe seeing human beings looking so terrifically animal-like. You had it in a movie that they made recently about fire, Quest for Fire. You saw them hardly making sounds. They didn't speak a language.
Go ahead, Brother Minister.
I'm not making mockery. But Allah took off of them the garments of the holy people when they were driven into the caves of Europe. The only thing they had with them was the language, and they lost that.
Come on, Brother Minister.
And their only friend was the dog. So today they say that man's best friend is a dog. Well, in that sense, yes. But when it comes to us, God's best friend is not dog. God's best friend is another God. But unfortunately, this man had fallen. And now only thing that befriended him was a dog. A friend of mine told me the other day that they moved, he's a friend of mine, he don't know it. He was on television, and they were asking him about the neighborhood that he moved into. And he moved into a white neighborhood, and they didn't want him in there. And he said he's trying to befriend his neighbors. He had a dog. And his white neighbor came into the yard and would not speak to black human beings, and petted the dog and walked out of the yard, leaving two human beings standing there in awe. But if you read the Quran, my dear brothers and sisters, you'd understand. Because as the Quran says of the righteous, where there are two of you, I am the third. Where there are three of you, I am the fourth. Where there are five of you, I am the sixth. Meaning that God is ever present with the righteous. In the 22nd verse of the 18th chapter, it says, some say they were three, and the fourth of them their dog. And others say five, the sixth of them their dog, making conjectures about the unseen. Now, meaning that Some say 7, and the 8th of them their dog. Say, my Lord knows best their number. How many dogs there were and how many humans there were, all I know. But the dog was present with him, and the dog is present with him now. Now. Think of a man and a woman living in a cave. The mouth of the cave facing north. The sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. And they're in a cave, huddled down, learning to make a little fire. But it's damp in the cave. It's dark in the cave. And they retreat in the cave. And if you've ever put a cast on your hand or a cast on your foot and there is no light that can get to your hand, you grow an inordinate amount of hair on that hand or on that leg when you remove the cast. Right. But when they're in the dark and there's no light on them, then they began to grow an inordinate amount of hair. Hair covered their bodies. Hair covered their faces. They walked on their arm fours so that their hands were like the animals with great strength in the hand, to move them along. Their only example was the animal. You've seen movies of people, a child that lost a mother, and it was reared by the animals. So the sounds that the animals made, the child made. The movements that the animal made, the child made. I am telling you, beloved, without mockery, that this is the origin and humble beginning of the world rulers. Mr. Reagan's family. Do you understand? Mr. Gorbachev's family. Mr. Bush's family. You understand? Mr. Shimon Peres's family. All these world, Margaret Thatcher's family in London, Queen so-and-so and Princess Diana. You understand? They had a humble origin. They live in palaces today and call you nigger and don't want to be near you, but I'm telling you, they live with dogs. They did not know how to bury their dead. They did not know how to cook their food. Come on, brother minister. Go ahead. Come on, brother. They were drinking water out of the skulls and remains of their dead. The dead would die and they would not even bury their dead. So whenever one of human stature would look at something like that, they would run back in flight in awe of what they were looking at. People who were unclean and filthy. Some of them even grew tails. Come on, brother. Yes, sir. I don't say this for mockery, and some are born with tails today. That's right. I have seen pictures of this. I say again, this knowledge is not coming to you for you to mock another human being. But this knowledge is coming to you so that white people who are proud and arrogant and forgot your origin in the world may be reminded that you once upon a time were nothing to speak of. And thus did we rouse them, that they might question each other. Allah says we roused them. Out of that condition, somebody had to come and wake them up. How long have you tarried? They could not tell you how long they were in the caves. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said they were in that condition for 2,000 long years. From the time of Adam to the time of Moses is 2,000 years. And they were in that condition until Musa came to teach them the forgotten technology. You think that Moses went down in Egypt and told Pharaoh, let my people go. But Moses is the great emancipator of the Caucasian people. He's revered and honored by them. Prophet Muhammad was a man like Moses, but nevertheless, that Moses was a sign of a greater one. And that Muhammad was a sign of another one. Hear me well, beloved. As it took Moses 22 years to civilize the Caucasian in the caves of Europe, He was not fighting a powerful king, a powerful ruler. He was fighting the powerful ignorance of the cave dweller. Likewise with Prophet Muhammad, he was not fighting against a king or a great ruler. He was fighting against the Quraysh, the ruling tribe, and the ignorance of the Arab people. You cannot compare that with going up against a world ruler who keeps a people in bondage and in subjection. It takes a longer time when you are opposed not by ignorance, but by ignorance and the powerful force of a powerful oppressor. Moses, Musa, we call him in Arabic, was sent. Listen, not raised, he was sent among the Caucasian people. Knowing them, we could not send a solid black man into the caves to get them. They would have rejected him. So Moses was a half original man. He was part of them and part of the original. It was easy to make one like that since the daughters of men were mixing with the sons of God.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So he was sent up among the Caucasians to civilize them. Moses had a hard time. The poor man, to civilize Caucasian people, he first had to make them look human. Because they did not look human. He had to teach them the value of water. He had to teach them the value of sunlight. He had to teach them how to bury their dead and how to cook their food and the manners of civilized people. Listen to me, brothers and sisters. He had to get them up from squatting, from crawling, because when you crawl, you get wide in this area. You understand? Flat in this area. You understand what I'm talking about? When you stand them up, they're wide in here and flat back here and rounded in the shoulder. Moses had to give them a board, put it in their back to keep them straight.
Come on, brother.
And I have even read from their writers that when you come home and you're tired, one of the good things to do as a form of relaxation is to get down on the floor and crawl around. Not for you, it ain't, black man and woman.
Go ahead, brother minister.
Put a board in their back. Now you can imagine putting on a corset. Some of you have to do that. Pardon me in the listening audience. But that's called the big squeeze, isn't it?
Go ahead, brother minister. Go ahead.
You got to squeeze yourself into that thing. In the old days, you have to lace it up. And when you go out, you squeeze into your dress, you look like you got good form because it pulls you in the waist area. Make you look like you got a thin waistline and you got some curve to your hips.
Go ahead, brother minister.
But you can't wait to get home. Or you can pull off that stuff. Moses had a hard job because in order for the Caucasian to rule, he had to come upright. He had to go among people who walked upright to deceive them into submitting to this new ruler that was on the planet. He had to be able to speak the language and know the customs of civilized people. Moses had a hard job. He used to have to sleep in a ring of fire. Because like the animals are afraid of fire, Moses had to keep fire around him because the savages would have killed him. A savage is a person that has lost the knowledge of himself and is living the life of a beast. So in the Genesis, he says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men. But in the book of Revelations, it says, count the number of the beast. For it is the number of a man. After living 2,000 years in the caves, he began to look like the beast, cohabit with the beast. This is their way. Leave them alone long enough, they will have sex relations with animals. Come on. This is something original people never do.
Come on, that's right. That's right.
Talk back to me if you know how. How dare you? How dare you call black people niggers and coons and shine today with a past like yours? How short is your memory? How could you say you want nothing to do with a black man?
Come on.
You don't want him in your neighborhood. Now you got a little dignified. But you didn't do it on your own. God sent you a prophet. And that prophet emancipated you from ignorance. Took him 22 years, and he promised you if you obeyed him, he would give you a place among the holy people. And he led those that followed him back into the Holy Land. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said they only followed him because they wanted to get out of that cave-like condition. They didn't want what he was teaching. They didn't want righteousness, but if I had to be righteous to get out of this, I'll do anything to get out of this cave. As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so shall the Son of Man be lifted up. Moses lifted up a serpent. So the symbol of medicine is a serpent crawling up on an upright tool.
That's right.
Huh?
That's right.
Moses lifted up a serpent. How did you lift him, Moses? I compensated for the weakness in their nature by the uprightness of the law of God. And that if the serpent would pull up on the uprightness of the law of God, he could stand up before the civilized nations of the world, and they would accept him and bring him in as an equal member of the human family. So when they talk of Moses, they talk with reverence. But they were uplifted because of God's intervention. And now, beloved, in anger over their condition, they said, we'll show you what we think of you, cutting short our time of rule on the earth. We will take yours, and we will bring them across the Atlantic like you drove us across the desert. And we will cable tow them like your fathers cable towed us. And they had us with ropes around our necks, all of us tied to each other. I don't forget, black man. Even if you want to forget, we cannot forget what happened.
Come on, brother.
Sold us and robbed us of total knowledge of self. Language gone, name gone, religion gone, culture gone. Took the babies from the parents and told the baby, you a nigger, a coon, a shine, a ham bone. I found you in the jungles. You didn't have nothing till we white folks came and got you niggers and civilized you. This is what they told us, and we began to believe it. Then they deprived us of books and learning. You can't pray unless you pray in the field. You can't read the Bible. They kept it locked. It was against the rule to even teach a black man or woman to read or write. Therefore, they were depriving you of the light, depriving you of your divine right to know. And as they were deprived of the light, living in a cave that was dwarfing them and making them less and less in appearance as a human being, so was the black man and woman in America. By being deprived of divine light, you were retreating into a spiritual cave where you never saw the sunlight of truth rise in the east, nor did you witness it set in the west. There was no light among you at all, so you began to appear more and more animals. And so they legislated you out of the human family and called you in the Constitution 3/5 of a human being. And when the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution was made, yet they did nothing to amend the condition that drove you out of the human family, so that today you resemble animals. Last night on television, they had a program about the black family. And in that program, they had a black man that I understand that they were questioning about his having made 4 or 5 women pregnant. And did he feel any responsibility to his own children? And the man coldly and callously said, no. He didn't feel no responsibility to the woman or to the children. When you show that to white people whose tax dollars and yours have to maintain illegitimacy, in quotes now, not that they're illegitimate, but illegitimacy, or maintain you in what they call a bastard lifestyle, then they look at a man that says, no, I don't care nothing about them children. Just say I got maybe an extra large sperm count. You know what I mean? See, but they're showing him as an animal. And when they show you as an animal, a policeman that gets you in his grip, he's not looking at you like you're a fellow human being. Kill the nigger. Shoot the nigger. Beat the nigger. And when they kill you, they've gotten rid of another animal. Then they go before the judge, and the judge say, oh, justifiable homicide. You didn't do nothing wrong. You just got rid of another nigger, another mouth to feed. But hold on, white people. Once upon a time, you were nothing to speak of. Once upon a time, you were in the caves. And your fathers have put black people in a cave-like condition, where there are 2 of them and the 3rd is a dog. But the dog is not necessarily flesh animal dog. It's a human being with dog-like characteristics. Go ahead. So my brothers and sisters are in a savage condition. And what do we need? We need a man like Moses, who will come and put a board in your back, who will stand you upright, form you again, make you beautiful again, teach you what foods to eat and what foods not to eat, how to cook it, how to store your food, how to dress yourselves, how to have the manners of decent, civilized society, so you could leave and go anywhere in the world and they will say, come in, we are happy to meet you, our lost brother from America. But you can't go with Reverend Chickenfoot's teaching. You can't go. Because Reverend Chickenfoot and Pastor Hogmaw, they are not civilizing you. They are not making you a better people. They are confirming you in your ignorance, filth, and indecency. There's a few pastors that are on the case doing the job right, but they're just a few. Nobody cared until Master Farad Muhammad came among us. You can talk about him if you want to, but Master Farad Muhammad cared for black people. He was a half original man. He was made like that so he could get in among us, even as Musa was made like that to get in among the cavy, because you would not accept a jet black teacher. Even today, it's hard for you to accept a jet black person standing up in front of you, teaching you, because deep down inside you're filled with an insidious poison that makes you believe that a black man cannot teach you anything. So when somebody teaches you, if they're not white, then they must be bright. That's right. That's right. So when I preach for the black man, they say, well, Farrakhan, you ain't black. Whatever I am, I'm for you. I'm hoping that you that are jet black will wake up and love yourself. And wake up and know how magnificent you are in the sight of Almighty God and take your place. But you've got to be civilized. A board got to be put in the back. And if you don't think you're crawling on your all fours, look at your thinking and look at your example, look at your actions. You're like an animal before the whole world. And nobody can accept you as you are with a cross hanging around your neck, braids all down your head, and grease running down the braid.
Go ahead.
Dressed like this one, dressed like that one, trying to be this one, trying to be that one, crazy as hell in your mind. Somebody got to civilize you, but they got to have a ring of fire around you. Because as crazy as you are, you will kill your benefactors because you don't want to straighten up. Some of you were brought into Muhammad's mosque by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He put a board in your back. You got to live by the law of God. Oh, hell. You mean I can't drink? You mean I can't smoke no reefer?
Go ahead, Brother Minister.
You mean I can't go over to Susie's house when Susie's husband ain't home? Oh, shoot.
Go ahead, Brother Minister.
You mean I can't steal? I ain't supposed to lie? Oh, hell, it's hard to be a Muslim.
Go ahead.
You say, I like the teaching, but I don't want to be a part of this. You mean I got to put on a long dress? That's the first thing you got to do to a savage is tell the fool to put on clothes.
Go ahead.
You can't be walking around with your breasts hanging out and be respected by civilized people. You can't be walking around with a slit from your ankle all the way to your hip and be respected by civilized people.
Right.
You got to put on clothes. You got to dress up. Not only dress up on the outside, but you got to dress up on the inside.
Right.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad put a board in our back.
Come on, brother.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad put a girdle on us. It was a spiritual girdle.
Yes.
He tightened it up. He said, I know it's tight, but keep it tight and it'll get right.
Come on. Come on.
We couldn't wait till he was gone. Where is it? Where's Muhammad? Where? Is he gone? You sure he's gone? You sure? He ain't coming back? Oh, thank God. And they pulled off the garment and started acting a fool again. Because you didn't understand what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was doing. He was civilizing the black man and woman. He wasn't trying to make a slave out of you. He was trying to make you right so that you could go on to your destiny, which is no longer to be the tail but the head.
Come on, brother.
That the bottom rail may come again to the top. But the world will never respect you. Out of shape, ugly, malformed, haters of yourself, disrespecters of your woman, living like dogs. Why did Musa have a hard time to civilize the devil 2000 BC? Because he was a savage. A savage is a person that has lost the knowledge of himself and is living a beast life. Why did Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan and anybody that want to work on you have a hard time? Because you're a savage. What is a savage? You've lost the knowledge of yourself. And now you live like the Caucasian, whom the prophets call a beast. And now as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, it's time now for the sons and the daughters of men to be lifted up. And it's so easy if you would cooperate. The scripture says, arise and shake the dust. Stand up. Shake the dust. The thing that's holding you down, God considers it dust. And as dust has no weight, it has no ability, no inertia, is dust is not under the law of inertia, in the sense that it has no resistance. All you got to do is move it. You can get up out of your condition. All you got to do is want to get up. A human being bound by a cigarette, bound by alcohol, bound by cocaine, bound by heroin, bound by an inordinate sex desire. You're bound by dust. Dust is holding you down. Arise and shine, for your light is come, and the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. Upon them hath the light shined. And now today that the light of God through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is shining on black people, the world is beginning to see a new black man and a new black woman emerging out of the destroyed sons and daughters of Africa in the Western Hemisphere. And now as I leave you in a few days, I will be welcomed with open arms in Nigeria, because the Nigerian is not seeing a dead brother coming home. Come on. He's seeing a very live black man coming home. When I put my foot on African soil, Africa's going to rejoice that the lost is now found. The blind can now see. The wretched of the earth has come home. And I go back home with a board in my hand for Africa's back, and a girdle for Africa, that Africa may stand up once again and the world admire Africa as she once admired Africa. But you, black man and woman, have the responsibility on your shoulders. You just must stand up like a man and woman and overthrow the forces that have misshapen you and malformed you and made you into less than human beings. It is up to you. The modern Moses has arrived. He most certainly is on the job. But the worst thing about it, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has to fight against the awesome power of the United States government of America. And that is a heavy power that is fighting against your rise and your civilization. So in my conclusion, I say to Mr. Reagan and to Mr. Bush and to the government of America, you would be wise to leave me alone. I have a mission to do what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad started and what he guides me to complete. And if you want to be spared from the chastisement of Allah, you should help me to civilize black people rather than throwing stones of stumbling in my path when you know that the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad absolutely reform the black man and woman and make them worthy of self-respect and universal respect. And if you continue to oppose me, you won't have too much longer to oppose. By the help of Allah, we intend to civilize you. You are going to be the beautiful people that God intended you to be. So on Super Sunday, as some animals get ready to do their job, I want you to remember as you say, "Go Bears." Those black bears, you tell them, go towards civilization. And if you happen to be a bear or a lion or a tiger or some beast or a reptile, remember that God didn't make you to be a beast, a bear, a leopard, a lion, an eagle, or a reptile. He made you in his own image and after his own likeness. So get up from calling yourself after such cheap names. I'm not a bear. I am a son of the living God. What about you? Thank you for listening, and may Allah bless you as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.